Hey there, good people, and welcome to another episode of the Finnovator with me, Stuart Bell, business coach and founder of our Dairy Coaching Consulting. And this one has to be one of the most popular masterclasses I've ever run with Alan Smith of Capital Asset Management. Now, as I record this, I'm about a week back from visiting the UK, where I caught up with Alan and a bunch of other people for a fantastic lunch down there in Little Venice in London. I want to thank everybody for inviting me. But this one's really a podcast that's about 8 years in the making. I met Alan, as I said, 8 years ago when we just got chatting off the back of a LinkedIn post. And we've kind of checked in every year or so, and I've been following him really, really closely. And as I kind of mentioned in the intro to this one, his journey over the last 8 years has been incredible. Not just the growth of his business, and we talk a lot about this in this module, but also what started out for him as a bit of a, I guess, experiment, a COVID lockdown thing into digital marketing has just ended up producing some fabulous results. If you haven't been over and checked out his podcast, the Real Advisor podcast, Trap, and also the personal one he does called the Bulletproof Entrepreneur, please do, because he is entertaining, insightful, and has just so much useful information to provide. So I hope you get a lot out of this. I've been, blessed to have had some time with Alan. We've spoken through a whole bunch of things and blessed to have seen him all the way through. And I hope you get as much out of listening to this as I did recording it. Anyway, I'll hand over so you can listen to Alan. So this story kind of begins actually in about 2015. And at the time, I was on the cusp of just releasing a book. And in particular, just starting a working group, which ended up becoming the program that I run today, which is Practice Evolution. And I put an article on Twitter, ironically, and I got this comment from this gentleman, Alan Smith, who was in the UK, and we ended up having a bit of a conversation, and we spoke about everything. He told me about his business, and I told him about what I was doing, and he was incredibly supportive and social. And strangely enough, we continued the conversation over the years, and we check in. Sometimes it was 1 year, and sometimes it was sort of after about a couple of years. But what ended up happening, sure enough, about 2 years or 3 years ago, probably about close to 3 years ago, I started to notice this real uptick in the not just the frequency of his posting on Twitter and on LinkedIn, but in particular the quality. And if you've done marketing, financial advice, any sort of particularly digital marketing, finding that sweet spot between sharing information that is factual, accurate, and really goes deep on the area of money and investment and all financial advice around it, and really capturing people's attention and being readable and engageable. It's not an easy thing to do, but I remember just following him and watching him get better and better at it, and realizing how much he'd really excelled and really cracked it. And as if you know a bit about Alan and you've been following, you'll know how good his content is. Particularly, when I started finding out about his podcast and those guys who are on here, phenomenal work, great stuff. Andy Hart as well. Funnily enough, is another contact that I've known from a long, long time ago, who I made contact with. And I wanted to get him on board and really talk about not just how he's done this digital thing and also the podcasting thing, because I'm a fan of podcasts from way back. I've got my own podcast and I love the medium, but also how he managed to build a business behind it. So that's what I wanted to get stuck into today. So without any further delay, Alan, are you there, mate?
I'm here.
How the hell are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very well. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, or good evening to our Australian friends. We're not going to talk. You're not Australian, are you, Stuart? We're not going to talk about the Ashes. I'm Scottish.
We can talk about the Ashes all you like, but I was born in the UK, and I came out here when I was very young, and then I went back to England and sort of spent from about 13 to 22. And to be honest, when I came back here, whenever the Ashes came up, I'd always get the same question. It was like, which side are you on? And it wasn't just like, who are you supporting? It was like, well, where's your allegiance? I just stopped answering the question, and I've sort of stayed away from it. But there's nothing will generate a good bit of traditional banter than the Ashes, particularly this series, right? It's been full of it.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
It's great to see you. And I, as I said, I went back in my inbox and I realized that our conversation's been ongoing for many, many years. And it's been great to see you sort of doing what you're doing. It's been super impressive. Mate, you've just got back. You've just come back from up north, right?
Yeah, I was in Scotland for a week. I was abroad. I've taken some time off, taken nearly a month off work, which is really good. And I'm just got back to work kind of yesterday. bit rusty, but kind of raring to go. Quite a lot of things on the go right now. A lot of projects to be done. So positive and quite exciting times for us in the profession over in the UK.
Do you find being able to take a lot of time off has had an impact on your productivity or what you produce when you're back in, or is it just kind of same but less?
No, I think it's good. I've always been a fan of the idea of kind of rest and rejuvenation, recharging the batteries, all that sort of thing. And it's a challenge when you're running a business, particularly in the early days of running your business, when you kind of are, as I was in the early days, I kind of was the business. And therefore, it's very difficult to get any time off. And I was constantly, just checking my emails and checking my phone and so on. But I'm able to now. I've got a pretty solid business, which is kind of self-managing, a great team of people here. So I can get some good time off without worrying or concerning myself too much about, business as usual and things going on within the company.
Right. It's living the dream, that is.
Doing our best.
We've got so much to get through. And so I'm just going to dive in because if we don't get some pace on this, we're going to end up missing out on some stuff. But I want to just kick it off by sort of saying, when people ask you that question, what do you do, or how do you present, capital asset management and your role, and how do you describe it?
Well, that's evolved over the years as well. So there's two aspects. There's two aspects to that. One is in terms of what we do as a business. One big lesson that I've learned over the years is simplicity is really important. You can get, and I've historically sort of got in the weeds of all the complexities of the work that we do, but fundamentally, we've now distilled everything down. I think communication is really important. We've all got the curse of knowledge, right? We all understand kind of the job we do and the impact that it can have in the lives of the clients that we work with, and it's very productive, and we can be very influential and positively so in the lives of our clients. So, in terms of what we do, we've distilled it all down. We do three things, and that's all we do.
Yep.
And it's the 3 Ps: plan, portfolio, and partnership. That's what when I explain that to clients or prospective clients, we do 3 things. They kind of get it instantly. That's using the power of 3, which is, a good communication technique. We've got the ability to understand 3 things, probably not too many more, but that's exactly what we do. We build a model, we build a plan. Where are you today, and where do you want to get to, and where do you want to stay in the future? That we then fuel that plan with the appropriate resources. We organize and optimize your resources now and in the future in order to give you the highest possible opportunity of achieving the plan, the sort of idealized life that you've determined within the plan.
Yep.
And the third, and in my opinion, the most important part of that sort of proposition is the partnership, is the ongoing relationship, the role that we play in the lives of our clients as a trusted advisor, a confidant, a sounding board, and just somebody, probably the only person in their life that kind of outside of their family that cares for their future, the financial future, the financial security of their family as much as they do, and has got the experience and knowledge to help them implement and achieve that. So those are the 3 things that we do. We explain that to clients, and they get it pretty quickly.
I love 3. As a coach I worked with once said, he says 2's not enough and 4's too many. 3's just right. I love it.
Exactly right.
So when did your journey begin? Like, when did you start down the route of starting the business that would eventually become Capital Asset Management?
2004. So we are, next year will be our 20-year anniversary, and we're quite a different business, I suppose, to the one that started. I always say I've really only had 2 jobs in my life. I spent the formative part of my career at a large asset management company now, and I was the role. I don't know if you have that. You probably do have it in Australia. It's called a broker consultant. Basically, I was representing the brand, the company, and going and kind of knocking on the doors of intermediaries, of financial advisors, banks, accountants, and promoting our products and services in competition with our, the other insurance companies, fund managers, asset managers, and so on. And I learned an awful lot during that period. I was there for 14 years. So it was enough time to really understand, our industry. And what I did over the years was I kind of cherry picked, dealing with dozens of different financial advice companies. You see, the good, bad, and ugly of all sort of practice. And and you really did. And some days, some of the ugly was pretty prevalent. Some things I saw, and I've always been based around London and central London. And what I did over the years was identify, what I would consider to be best practice. There was, let's say, firm A had a fabulous client proposition, how they described, how they articulated their value model.
Yep.
And firm B had a really interesting investment strategy, and firm C had the different ways of recruiting and so on. And I always had this idea, if I could cherry pick all the very best parts of a business and kind of assemble them together, you could have this sort of optimal financial advice business. And that's what I aim to do. And I still stand by pretty much everything that I learned back in those days. For example, I'm not a believer in huge corporate businesses. I don't think, and there's so many examples now in the UK of large corporates, big national advice brand businesses, and they don't enjoy the same degree of success. Maybe I like the idea of a boutique business, maybe 4, 5, 6 advisors, something like that, with a fantastic support team in place, optimized technology, great client proposition, very focused on a particular. I'm a believer in sector specialisms and niche, identifying the particular types of clients that you want to work with, and understanding where their pain points lie, and optimizing to relieve their pain, I suppose. And so that's really what we did. I didn't really have a grand plan. I didn't write a business plan, but I kind of knew what good looked like as a business. And we've just evolved that over the years, bit by bit. I mean, 19 years is a long time to be in business, really. But it's been organic growth over the time, and to the position that we are now. And so we're in good shape. We're a successful independent boutique business. We're, to use our language over here, we're an independent firm of chartered financial planners. And looking at the exchange rate this morning, we've got about $1 billion Aussie dollars under management across about 250 clients. So it's, we're in a nice place, but we can certainly talk about my own journey, because when I literally started as a sole operator, one-man band.
Right.
That's what I was from day one. And I tell you what, it was a very steep learning curve. I thought, having dealt with a lot of financial advisors over the years, I thought, how hard could it be? It looks pretty simple. All they do is sort of show up, meet a few clients, flog a few policies. And it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be when I got started. And I literally learned on the tools, day by day, learning as I go. And I think there's a lot of value in just consistency. I tell you what, I showed up every day, just every single day. I showed up, did my best, and we just grew organically, word of mouth, one client at a time. And as I say, we grew. When I got particularly busy, I went out and recruited. I brought in other advisors, I brought in other staff, and organically grew over a period of time.
How long did it take you to go from sole operator to a business that you'd say, it was a point where you realized you weren't driving everything?
It was about 3 years.
Okay.
I would say it was a few years in. I was pretty busy from day one. There was lots of opportunities. I think there still are. There's loads of opportunities for growth. And I was just focused on growth. I was focused on building the business. I'm a great consumer. I read a lot of books. I listen. Probably not so many podcasts in those days, but I'm a student of our profession. I'm a student of trying to understand behavioral psychology, of sales, things like that. And I just believed that we did a really good job. I knew that we helped people. I've got my own, I probably haven't got time to go into it now, but I've got my own personal journey, my background journey, sort of growing up in Scotland and sort of some of the trials and tribulations of growing up with, parents that were very kind of business, or my dad particularly entrepreneurial, and the roller coaster ride that you go through financially. And so I understand the impact of understanding finances within a family. And I just felt that we could do a good job. And I didn't sort of articulate it particularly well then, but I was very driven by by values and a mission. Really, I just wanted to help people. And I think that's what we did. We showed up every day, was successful in word of mouth, and referral strategy was our biggest thing. We just often would speak to a client, and they'd refer us to somebody else. And I think in those days I was quite focused on technology as well early on, which is quite different. I was trying to sort of harness the powers of tech from day one, and that was differentiating us from perhaps some of our competition. That
was the basis of how we started our conversation, because I was the same. My parents were both self-employed people, caused a lot of problems in the family as well. My mum was actually an Avon lady way back in the 70s. Right. But I kind of had an experience in the tech startup space, and then I came back and started coaching some of this stuff. And I thought, way back there, I was like, there's a real opportunity here. And you can kind of see where it's got to since there. It's kind of taken off. But I think if you're interested in that stuff, it makes it easier. So
yeah, exactly. But there was just going through the process, there was a time, and I know you want to talk about it. where I had to just kind of redefine my own role.
Yeah.
So
because there was one thing you said to me really stuck. And I think you said, I think I shared with something that come from Dan Sullivan. But you said, if I look back at the things that I thought I wouldn't be doing today, 5 years ago, if you told me that you won't be doing that, I would tell you but that's how I make my money. And that's a massive shift for a lot of people out there.
Well, it is. I think I'm certainly not unusual. I know a lot of people in our profession, and I'm not unusual in that. It wasn't as if I had training as being a business operator, a business owner, and a managing director or anything like that. It was just you thought you kind of gave yourself a job, didn't you, as opposed to create a business. That was the idea. You thought, I've there's a bit of opportunity here. There's some clients or prospective clients out there. As long as I can meet up with people and I can build a relationship, build rapport, offer value, then I can make a living. And do that. And, I read something the other day, again, I'm not sure what it's like in Australia, but in the UK, 47% of the financial advice firms in the UK have one advisor in them. So they're sort of sole trader. So half the market is a sort of sole trader advisor. And that's absolutely fine. And I think most of them or all of them are successful and do a good job. But there's a difference between being a sole trader advisor and having a business, a boutique business that operates with staff and sort of operating models and all that sort of stuff. And really, the story is not complex. I was just, as a founder of the business, the person that I was kind of the rainmaker, of course. A lot of the client opportunities were coming to me. Yeah. And I was on the tools. I was advising clients. I got to a stage where I had about 90 client families, but I was also trying to run the business. So I was also recruiting people, and I was trying to do all the corporate stuff that you're supposed to do, like having, quarterly staff appraisals and, help develop members of the team and go out and recruit people. And then I've got responsibilities about, let's say, like the office lease and negotiating with landlords and you name it. So you've got a massive shopping list of things that you're supposed to do, plus business development, business generation, and all that stuff. And you realize that there's not enough time in the day to do all these things. And I just started looking at, I was just crazy busy all the time. I was just really, really busy every single day, long work days, long weeks. And I sort of reflect, I'm looking at our sort of revenue and growth. And I thought, man, we are flatlining. We haven't grown in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And I couldn't, it's crazy now, but you can't see the wood for the trees because you're right in it and really, really busy. And I couldn't work out, if I'm so crazy busy and we've got new opportunities, why are we not really, really sort of shooting the lights out on our business growth? Yeah. And I eventually realized the problem was me. I was the bottleneck. I mean, I was getting opportunities for new prospective clients and literally not even getting back to them, not having the time to call them back. That was the sort of situation that we were in. And at the time, I mentioned that I read a lot of books, and I read a book called The E-Myth, which is quite a famous book, Michael Gerber. Yep. And then the penny dropped. And I thought, the E-Myth is, the E obviously stands for entrepreneur, in that it's a myth. If we think we're entrepreneurs because we've got a business, well, actually, we're not. We've given ourselves a job. Most people, according to the research that Gerber did for that book, most people who start a business, they're working for a larger company. They think to themselves, well, I can do this better. Tick, did it. I don't have to work for somebody else, and I can make the money myself and not have to, hand over, this to a boss or to a big corporate or company. So they go and set up in business by themselves. And then they realize quite quickly that they've got the worst boss in the world, i.e. themselves, and they're on the tools, and they're doing the job, but they're doing everything then. They're doing the job as the technician, as he calls it. You're showing up and being a financial planner, but you're also a manager. You're also being, having to run the company. In my day, I had I didn't deal with staff or anything else in my sort of previous job, but now I had to deal with every aspect of running a business, and this kind of this entrepreneur aspect of being a growth-driven business owner, entrepreneurial mindset, etc. That was just pushed out. You didn't have time to think about that. And so I really kind of reflected, well, how can I change this? Because if I don't change, then we've pretty much flatlined in terms of growth. I can't give any more hours to this. And you realize then, I think this is quite a common question or perhaps a fork in the road for financial advisor, financial planner, business owners. is that you either decide to say, well, I love being a financial planner. I love the clients. And a lot of people do say this to me. I just love the client. That's the best part of the job. I love the client work. So that's fine. You carry on doing that, but you absolutely will have to hire, if you want to continue to grow, have to hire like a managing director, operations person. So, other people to do those jobs if you want to continue to grow. Or you step into the role as the entrepreneurial founder and step away from the day job as showing up and delivering financial planning and financial advice to clients.
Yep.
And it was that I chose to do the latter. I chose to step away from the day-to-day client activity. And it was a tricky time, really. I've got, a great bunch of people around me, some great advisors. They've been with me for years and years. But I initially said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of carve out, if you like, by revenue terms, the bottom 30% of my clients, and hand them across for day-to-day, looking after by my colleagues, which is going to free up more time for me to get involved in other more strategic issues. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And you realize actually those clients with, let's say, less complex circumstances, more modest wealth, etc., they don't really take up that much time. So I give away sort of 30% of my client, and nothing much changed, because a lot of the time was taken up by the larger clients, the more complex clients, the more demanding clients.
Yep.
So it was kind of put up or shut up. I'm going to have to take this seriously or not bother at all. So what I did is I effectively just passed across all my client relationships to my colleagues, to my other advisors. Now, I was speaking to people at the time who were saying to me, God, you must be mad. What if you do? Because a lot of advisors work from a kind of scarcity mindset as opposed to abundance mindset.
Absolutely.
But what if they get these clients and then they take them and they leave you and take all the clients with them? I thought, well, what if they do? If they do, they do. I hope they don't. I want to create an environment where no one ever wants to leave. Why would they want to leave if we've got a great business here? But if I don't do this, we're done. Our growth is I have no more to give, so we can't progress as a business. So that's what I did over a period of time. And that's quite a tricky thing to do, because you have got, we are in a relationship business, and saying to, Mr. and Mrs. Client, it's been lovely, working with you, but I want to bring in Graham, I want to bring in Charles, I want to bring someone else, can be a challenge, but it worked pretty well, actually.
In my experience, clients are they're more focused on what they're going to lose. So if you say, I'm going to hand you over a relationship, they're not going, they might go, I want this, but you can put that aside, saying, we're growing, I'm going to be there in the background, I'm still, but what their option really is, well, if I don't work with you, I've got to work with someone else. And that's a much less appealing offer than potentially still working with the business, but having that contact. I want to ask you a quick question, Alan, because there's a lot of businesses that might be listening to this, and they were like, I've reached that point where I don't have enough time. And we can talk, let's park the resourcing issue, the hiring the right people, because we need to talk about that a little bit. But when I look at you, what you told me is when you started out the business, you were focused on a boutique practice with a niche focus.
Yep. And
I'm guessing that you charge in such a way that gives you the ability to be profitable, correct?
Yeah, well, we do now.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time looking at things like, I didn't used to bother about this. You show up, but over time, see the role that I then step into over that time is much more of a kind of strategic entrepreneurial type role. Yeah. We do look at things like profitability, and you do look at value for money and a number of things, and you think, well, that's what you should do. Yeah. That's what all businesses do. If you're running a restaurant or any other business, you do look at where your target market is, who your audience is, what the profitability factors. You try to avoid cross subsidy. You try to avoid taking on lost leaders, etc. But I think a lot of the financial planning profession is just, see how it goes. We'll take on any clients. So I evolved. Well, it wasn't what I was doing from the beginning, but I did evolve over time. Once I created this sort of the brain space, I think, to think about this stuff.
Paul Graham is the guy behind Y Combinator, and he was one of the guys who started Dropbox and Uber. And he was asked the question on a CNN interview, and it was a great question. He gave a really quick answer. What's the biggest mistake startups or growing businesses make? And he said, don't charge enough. Because to get to that point where you can reinvest in growth, you have to have enough profit. And that's when your fees need to be right. And my feeling is when you got to the point you didn't have enough time, your ability to carve out clients and hand off would have been impacted by your ability to invest in the right people to be able to support that. So obviously you're handing off. Tell me a bit about how you made sure you had the right people on board and you attracted the right people and trained them to be able to, take over.
I'd like to say there was a bit of luck involved. I just bumped into people, met people, but I was just very clear. One thing is quite interesting, I think, about this profession, from some of the war stories that I hear some of the things I hear in the grapevine is that there's a lot of broken promises made. People are offered various things. They join companies, join organizations. They're told this is going to be wonderful. We're going to give you this. We're going to offer you that. And more often than not, they don't deliver it. And I'd like to think, you have to ask my colleagues about this, but I'd like to think I've delivered in every single promise that I've made to them. And I think that's important. And I think it's important, the magic word is culture, isn't it? So I think I've created a positive culture. We are, values driven. We are trying to change the world in our little corner of the world. And I think if you attract like-minded people, look after them well, give them autonomy, pay them appropriately above market rates, then you can attract and retain some high quality individuals. But I do think, again, without being a little bit, without being too fluffy about it, having a vision, having something that's differentiated. I think that's an important theme that runs through a lot of the stuff that I think about and that I do. I've got a very clear vision about the profession, what good looks like, how we can optimize for our clients, the value that we deliver, all those things. And it's like the saying, sort of build your tribe. I've tried to build a tribe of like-minded people. The advisors that I know and hang out with, they believe most of the same things that I do. Yeah. The team that I work with believes the same things. And I think the clients believe the same sort of things. And that's fine. But there's probably a lot of other people that think it's nuts. They don't believe this at all. And that's absolutely fine. I think that's another lesson I've learned over the years, is that we don't need to deal with everyone. Come back to this point. There's a target audience that, like what we do, they enjoy and value what we do. So let's not try to persuade other people who don't really care about it or don't value it. So I think that's helped in terms of my ability to attract high quality people and have them stick around for long periods of time.
I think that point about the vision is really, really important, because everybody's happy when they've got something to look forward to, whether it's a holiday or, whatever. Yeah. And our vision is just like that. It's basically a place you're going to get to sooner or later. And the more compelling it is, the more likely you're going to attract, I think, people who are going to be working for that. Because once you reach your level of income, that kind of goes off. You're looking for the next level is the people, and then it's the bigger picture. That's awesome.
I think so, but people also want to just show up and just kind of enjoy the work they do. You don't want to have that sort of Sunday night dread. Oh God, I've got work in the morning. I've got Monday morning. They want to feel I'm looking forward to getting into the office or working from wherever, and enjoying the banter with my colleagues and helping our clients. It's not always plain sailing. I'm not trying to pretend for a second that it is. There's loads of challenges along the way, and they continue to be. But I think that's the thing. Create a positive environment, create a good workplace, look after people. It's basic stuff. This is not rocket science. This is pretty straightforward.
Two more questions on this I really want to know. The first one is about when you're training advisors to do what your clients have become used to from you. Yeah. What is the number one thing you think you would advise someone to do? Or maybe the number one thing that you think most people don't do that stops them from succeeding?
The thing that I learned over the years is, and it's nuts that this is a differentiator, but the ability just to, it's all about building rapport, but the ability to ask great questions. And to keep. We did a lot of work on this in the past, and we've got quite a mature team now. And maybe we've learned a lot, but we could always keep learning. But again, I was a junkie for going on courses and learning about how to build relationships, how to build rapport. We are in the relationship building business. The rest of the stuff is, as Andy Hart says, is just plumbing. It's just other stuff. Whether it's a fund, an investment, a product, a tax wrapper. But relationship building. And how do you build relationships? You've got to build trust, and you've got to build it quite quickly. You don't have years to decide if you're going to work with a client. And one of the I think the best way of building relationships and getting people to engage in what you do is by being genuinely interested in them. And if you sit down with somebody or with a couple for an hour and ask them some really meaningful questions, and pause and reflect and go deeper with every question. That's one sort of sure way. You've got to be authentic. You're not using it as a sales tactic. You've got to be genuinely interested in people. But in order for you to be able to help them, you really need to understand. And you can come into a conversation or a meeting with preconceived ideas about what they might be concerned about, and realize 20 minutes in that you were completely wrong. And the only way you're going to do that is by asking some great questions. So we spent a lot of time earlier on just honing our skill set, identifying what are the great questions that we can ask. How can we take that to the next level? And honestly, we just picked up some new clients, the other day recently. And I was, and they said to me, early on, just to make it clear, we are shopping around. This is really important. We're going to speak to a few different firms, and we always encourage people to do that. And they came back and they said, "Want to work with you guys, us?" So I thought that's great. And I'm always intrigued as to what was the differentiator, what made the difference. And he said, "You were the only firm that asked us about us. Everyone else went into sales mode quite quickly. Everyone else had a sort of a suite of products or portfolios and, the color charts and graphs. They went into that quite quickly. And I thought that's quite interesting. If a differentiator is the ability to sit down quietly with a couple for an hour and ask some great questions, well, I'm happy that that's still a differentiator. It shouldn't be, but it seems to be. So I think that's one of the things that all our team is pretty good at.
I couldn't agree more. It's like, put away the PowerPoint presentation. If you're giving a PowerPoint presentation during a first meeting, you've missed the point of the first meeting. It is to ask questions that make the client realize that you care, and secondly, diagnose what the issues are so they go, "Oh my God, you've got it." That's the PowerPoint presentation is going to help you do that. The other question I want to ask you this, and then we're going to move on to Twitter.
Yeah.
If you're going to go on the growth journey that you have, and your ultimate goal is either to be the CEO who's not advising or a dedicated advisor, other than other advisors, what do you think is a role within that kind of business that you need to absolutely get right? And if you don't have it, you're going to struggle to make the leap.
Well, I've had to really redefine my own role, and it's tricky. This didn't come easy to me at all. I mean, I find myself when you sort of move away from dealing with clients. When I've got a load of clients on my roster, if you like, my calendar is mapped out. We've got annual planning meetings, for all the clients. You've got 90 clients, and you take a few holidays, and you've got a few other things to do. Pretty much every week, in advance, I've got 4 client meetings next week, and it's quite regimented. And you remove all of that from your calendar, and you've got a blank calendar, which is great in some ways. But then you've got to think, what the hell am I going to do with this? So it did take me a while to kind of adjust to the new role. But I've reflected what I've determined is I do 4 things. And so the one is vision. You've got to keep having the vision, and the vision can change over time, and you're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to change your ideal, what an optimized vision looks like. But you've got to keep communicating it, because people forget. I learned, someone said to me recently, you've got to tell somebody 7 times before they hear it for the first time. Just because I say something once doesn't mean that's because everyone else has got a busy life. Everyone else is thinking what they're going to have for dinner that night or what they're doing at the weekend. And they haven't forgotten they've forgotten my wise words and my vision. So understanding the vision and keep, communicating the vision. And then you got to, the next part of that is strategy. How are you going to take this vision and actually make it real? So it's not just some fluffy, silly concept that's never going to come into play. Then growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. So every business needs to be focused on growth. So what are we doing to move us from where we are as a business right now to where we want to be once we've understand the vision and the strategy? So vision, strategy, growth. And the last one is culture. It's just making sure that everything is still operating internally and externally. The people are happy. That culturally, we've got a set of core values within the business. That are we all living up to them, including me? I've got to lead from the front, and that sort of things. I've got to show by my actions that I'm embracing the culture that we have all agreed is what we want to be, and that applies to our client relationships and how we show up in the world. So vision, strategy, growth, and culture. That's my kind of North Star that I keep coming back to. And it sounds all very grand for, but we're still a, tiny business. But I think without that, I think you can just lose the way, and you find yourself kind of going around in circles, not knowing what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think if I do that, and particularly the things around culture and meeting with a team and just having a coffee with colleagues and things like that is important. But I still am very, and this is probably will lead us into the conversation about growth and some of the stuff that we've done on the social media side of things in the last year or two. But growth remains very important to us. So I'm trying to continue to optimize for growth, but not growth at all costs, and not just doing things just because we can, but understanding if all those things are aligned, if we've got our strong set of values and we've got a clearly defined mission and vision, and we just need to understand how we can fuel that future growth.
I love it. So let's talk about Twitter. Was there ever a point where you didn't think that social media or digital marketing was an avenue that a financial planning practice should focus on if they wanted to grow?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it literally was only the last 18 months that I thought of it. Look, I'm classic entrepreneurial magpie. Anything new and shiny, I'll try it out sometimes, see if it works. And I was an early adopter of Twitter, but my God, I was wondering what you were going to share there, because I look back in my early tweets and they're just pathetic. Because when all these things first came to the fore, whenever it was 10, 15 years ago, everyone tries them out, but all famously, people are posting on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. Pick what I had for breakfast that day, and I just thought it was an absolute nonsense. Well, I just didn't have time for that sort of stuff, and so I've never really participated in a lot of those other ones. I'm not really on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or anything, but over time I began to understand it a bit more, and it was Twitter which I kind of got into, because I was just. You'd follow quite a few people out there. I thought this is quite interesting because there was some real value was being added by others. Various people all around the world were posting things. I thought that's helpful. That's really interesting. And I think the catalyst. I've mentioned this before. The catalyst was kind of I suppose it was a dividend of the lockdown period in COVID.
Yep.
A couple of years ago. I guess we all just had a bit more time, and we're just, a bit bored, and probably doing a bit more scrolling of social media during those lockdown days. And I came across this digital writing course called Ship 30 for 30.
Yep.
And so that was all about, it was an online course where you were encouraged to write 30 brief articles. I mean,
yep.
Brief is like 250, 300 words or less. So pretty sure it's only a couple of paragraphs, really. But write 30 in 30 days. So I thought, well, I've got a bit more time in my hands. Let's give this a go. So I did. I signed up for it. And it really was the catalyst for me to understand. Because I just say, up until that point, I thought, it's not a load of nonsense. Your clients, your future ideal clients, aren't even on Twitter. There's a load of other advisors all bickering over fee models or active versus passive or some other nonsense.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's worth it. I've got a bit more time in my hands. It's worth exploring. So it was a really good course, and I do recommend it because what it did for me is it changed my mindset. Because if you've got to write something, and I'm the sort of person, I'm quite kind of obstinate. If I'm going to sign up and if I've got to produce some article or some piece of writing every single day for 30 days, otherwise I fail, then I'm going to do it. And so put myself under pressure. But it was good, and I do think there's a lot of psychology that says if you do anything, it's a habit form. Do anything for 30 days. If you go to the gym for 30 days, or you fast for 30 days, or do any number of things for 30 days, you rewire your kind of brain neurons or whatever it is. You kind of you create a new habit, and that's what happened to me. I did this. I showed up every day for 30 days. It's quite interesting because no sooner have you shipped your article for that day, you're thinking, right, shit, what do I do tomorrow? I've got to think of something else to write tomorrow. But it kind of rewires the brain, because we're all surrounded every single day. We are surrounded with ideas, insights, experiences that others would find valuable. And so I start just thinking about it. I think, oh, that was something that just happened. That's quite interesting. And every one of us, everyone on this call, every one of us in life generally is sitting on a mountain of knowledge that other people would find super helpful, super valuable. But we've got this gift of knowledge. We think, well, I know that because that's just obvious. So why would anyone care about it? And the reality is lots of people care about it. So I start, as I say, so I ran that program for 30 days, and I've really kept it up pretty much ever since. And so I'm a believer in making, small experiments. Let's see what happens over time. But if I keep showing up, if I keep creating some sort of digital content, some sort of material, some good might come of it. I don't know what might happen, but it'd be quite interesting. And I think what needs to happen, if anyone's interested in doing this, it's a mindset shift. I get people saying to me, I can see the kind of almost like mildly irritated. They say, God, you're on Twitter all the time, or every time I go online, I see your stuff. and how do you find the time is the question. How do you find the time to do that? And the answer is you just build systems. You begin to understand. And as still, God, I'm not an expert on this at all, but I'm probably further ahead than some other people in the financial planning profession. But I can tell you, I can, we can unpack as much detail as you want, depending on the time we've got. But I can tell you that as I speak to you today, content which does cut across the whole thing. I'm really only active on two platforms, which is Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yep.
And I'm a host or a co-host of two podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's all done pretty effortlessly. Really, basic systems allow you just to allocate some time to do this. Now, and this kind of digital world that we live in now, I've been various places around the world in the last, year or two, and the show still goes on. I'm still delivering podcasts and things because you can sit by a swimming pool or whatever and just, you can write an article. You've probably got more experiences that you can share with the world. So that is the single biggest source of our growth, our new business inquiries.
Single biggest.
It's like an ecosystem. It's not what some say. Is it coming from Twitter? Is it coming from LinkedIn? It's coming from all sorts of different places. People kind of follow the breadcrumbs. Things happen. The great thing about, for example, podcasts is that all this stuff exists out there forever, but podcasts in particular. If somebody, and this happened recently, somebody stumbles across a podcast that my kind of main business podcast is called Bulletproof Entrepreneur, and it really targets the key issues of those people who are ideal clients of ours, which are business owners and entrepreneurs, particularly those who are scaling towards a successful sale and exit. Yep. So some people stumble across it. People are just sort of searching for entrepreneur podcast, for example, and there's to my knowledge, there's nothing else in the UK anyway that talks about the issues that I talk about and the guests talk about. So they find that, they listen to a couple of episodes, they think this is quite good, and then through osmosis, they find then my LinkedIn profile and they read a few things that I posted and they think this is quite interesting, and it just builds up over time. And the interesting thing about that as well, in terms of when people contact us, and look, again, we're not a big business, but I would say, and I've got the data to back this up. We receive about, on average, not every single week, but if I was to average out over the last 6 to 12 months, one new inquiry from an ideal fit prospect per week. So one a week, which is more than enough for us to handle. And the good thing is, versus the kind of old model of just getting kind of what I call website inquiries, people Googling financial advisor, and then, they get in touch with you. These are people who are far more engaged because they've spent the time to consume some of the content. And as I say, if 90% of the people who've watched that or read some stuff think, oh, this guy is a nutcase, I don't want to ever speak to him, then fine, because we all save ourselves a lot of time. So content becomes your natural filter. Yep. And by the time someone has reached out to us and said, look, I've listened to a few of your podcasts, I've read some of your articles, can we have a conversation? Without being too ridiculously salesy, but your kind of conversion rates are just tend to be higher because they've pre-sold themselves. I like what they say. I like how they've described things. I like what they do. Can we have I'm looking to get some help with my finances. I'm going to sell my business next year. I'm retiring tomorrow or whatever it might be. So we've done a lot of the groundwork has been done. And this is what I talk about now. This is that digital arbitrage. The stuff gets created, but it's one to many. So you think of an idea. I mean, my old days, I've always been about growth, and I've just worn out so much shoe leather over the years. You go and have, the proverbial cup of coffee with an accountant or a solicitor or something, and you talk about business development and sort of mutual client referrals. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's a lot of effort. You can't scale that. You can't scale coffee meetings with accountants or with anyone else. You can scale this stuff if you get it right. And if you use this as a natural filter, and I mean, I posted something the other day, since again, I can tell all these stories, but if I back them with data, it's more credible. On LinkedIn, for example, they produce quite a lot of good analytics, and the stuff that I've posted since I took this seriously about just over a year ago, there's been 3 million impressions or reads of
I'm going to share that post now because I've got it right up in front of me. There you go.
Yeah, so over 3 million in the last 365 days. 2,500% increase, which just shows you. So before I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't posting pictures of my breakfast, but I was just like not talking nonsense really. But I decided to take it a bit more seriously since I did the Ship 30 course, and of course I've done other things as well to learn more about this stuff. And as I say, I'm far from an expert, but every day I learn more. But that's the kind of receipts, as they say, I mean, look at that one there, the Warren Buffett. That's just, again, it's not rocket science, but it was quite interesting. A Warren Buffett post, and that was one of the ones in total has about 500,000 views. And what that did, actually, if you look through the bottom, it's not here, but that Warren Buffett post, that then sowed some breadcrumbs. I don't have the whole thing though on that post, but because that then said, that particular thing I discussed, that you can't, that's a screenshot, so you won't be able to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that particular thing then said, to learn more about this particular issue, I did a podcast interview with this guy, Robin Wigglesworth. And Robin Wigglesworth is an author and an FT journalist. And it was all about, that was about that story.
Yeah.
So if 500,000 people read that post, a certain percentage of them would then follow it through and go to the podcast. And in fact, that particular podcast episode, because again, it's all data and analytics driven, is our single biggest, most popular podcast in terms of downloads.
Yeah.
And what it did though was it effectively backed up. It's all kind of, you can join the dots because it supports our investment proposition. The Warren Buffett story leads to a podcast interview with an author who's written a best-selling book, and that book supports our investment proposition. So if you like all those things, let's have a conversation.
I love it.
That's
I love
kind
it.
of how it works.
And look, I think one thing I've really taken from this, and also from your recommendations, is you seem to approach this as you're not trying to create a 4-course meal or a degustation menu. It's like a tasting plate, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little cheese and whatever, and bit by bit people get to know you, and next thing you know, they come into the office and they're like, I already know what you do. I know who. I want to talk to you about doing something.
Yeah, kind of. And what you begin to realize over time is this magical thing called algorithms. Platform algorithms. We've got some of the smartest people on the planet out in Silicon Valley, and their sole purpose is to keep people on the platform, not because they like me or you, but because they want to sell something, advertising, clicks, whatever you want to talk about. So in the past, I've certainly been a victim of the algorithm. I start scrolling stuff and I read more stuff. And then before I know it, I've lost an hour of my life because I've read some or watched some YouTube video or something like that. I think it's quite interesting. So the challenge is to flip that around. Is to use the algorithms for our own benefit. And what you realize quite quickly is that's why people say to me, God, every time I go on LinkedIn, I see your posts up there. It's because you've clicked the previous ones. Yeah. The algorithm has said, oh, this person likes this. They have no idea what the content actually is, but they've said this person likes it. So we're going to always put at the top of their feed the same content. So if this creator, me in this case, writes another article, the next time you go on LinkedIn, you'll see that. Other people won't see it because they'll be not interested. So that's fine. So the thing is about creating a system. So people say, how do you find the time to do this? You just build a system. So I use scheduling tools. The one I use is called Hootsuite, and you can. I just constantly think of things. There's a book which I highly recommend. It's called Show Your Work. A guy called Austin Kleon. I read that about a year ago. And it just says all the stuff. It's what I just said. All the stuff that you come across that you experience. Show your work. Just share it with the world because and if 99% of people think, well, that's dull and uninteresting and boring, then wonderful. Then if 1% of people think this is really quite interesting and it's so relevant to what I'm doing or what I need or what I'm kind of interested in, then that 1% will see that stuff. So you show your work. And so I'm constantly thinking of, because I've got the mindset now since I did Ship 30 to think, all right, what else is going on that the world might find? You've got to constantly think, as often I'll think of posting something, I think, well, that's bullshit. That's boring. If you constantly put a filter of value, someone somewhere might find this helpful. They might not have understood it. Just say, is this going to offer somebody, at least one person, some value? Yes or no? If no, don't bother. I mean, you can't do that every time. Sometimes you just want to talk about some other thing that's on your mind. But if it's going to resonate, then offer value. So I just use a Google Sheets, and I think about something and I just write that, or Google Doc, and I just write it down. And probably once a week I sit down, I just schedule, I say, right. And that's the other thing that I learned from these courses, consistency. So I try to schedule things to drop at about 8 a.m. most mornings. So I try to post one thing a day. So It should be about the same time every day, and just sort of drop it out. And then you use the great thing about particularly Twitter is you get instant feedback. You'll think, well, I've got this brilliant thing I'm going to share with the world, and you post it and it's like crickets. No one's interested. You think, well, actually, maybe it's not quite so brilliant. just because I thought it was. And then you post some other random nonsense that you think, well, this is just fun. And it just kind of goes viral. You think, well, this is very interesting. So then double down on that. Again, there's a whole ecosystem for that. So Twitter is your testing ground because it takes, it's all by its very nature, although you can post longer form ones now. But I like posting very short form thoughts or concepts or ideas. Find the ones that resonate and then create longer form. Maybe that becomes a LinkedIn post. Maybe that can build onto your. And the other thing I would say, and this other thing I've been doing over the past little while, is building my own email list. Because one thing we know about, you can spend a lot of time and effort creating your personal profile and all the rest of it. And then, God knows what's going on. What's not called Twitter anymore, is it? So whatever Elon decides to do next week might just change everything. And so it's quite good to have, build your own platform. So I'm sort of taking some of the audience away through an email list. I haven't started writing the emails yet or the newsletters, but building some other content through another medium that I've got more control over.
They say it in email marketing, the money's in the list, and email's not going away. So if you build a list, you've got direct line. I know we're running a bit short of time, but I wanted to ask you about the podcasting. I also want to ask you quickly. Yeah. Did what you were doing on Twitter, did the habit you'd built lead to the podcast, or were they completely separate things?
It was all kind of part of the same, thinking, the same process. They came from different places, but it was just it was the idea of creating content out there. And again, so I go right back to basics. When I mentioned earlier on, got a company, believe in what we do, convinced we add value, know we add value, get feedback, want to still grow the business. Yeah, we want to make a bigger impact, and it's not really about let's make ourselves rich or richer or have more money. It genuinely is about making a positive impact. And every one of my team will stand by that. So how do we do it? And we've tried multiple methods. That's where it comes from. It comes from trial and error. As I said before, wasted breakfast meetings with random people with the intent of growing the business. So I more and more got interested in the concept of content creation and content marketing. Right. And I use myself as the test case. I listen to podcasts. That's an interesting thing because I mentioned YouTube earlier on, but I'm not a big YouTube viewer. I don't watch a lot. I know other people do watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I don't. And the reason that I don't is because I'm static when I'm doing it. I can't do other things. I like the podcast as a medium. I can go for a walk and go to the gym and drive and do various other things whilst consuming that content. And so for me personally, and it's the same. And that's why I'm not on Instagram producing content, because I don't really watch. I don't read it myself. So I just replicate, and maybe it's just a selfish thing. I listen to podcasts. I read Twitter, I read LinkedIn. Don't know much of anything else. Yep, same. So I think that's an important thing. Not to try and spread yourself too thin. My audience, as far as I'm aware, doesn't exist on TikTok. My ideal future audience doesn't. It might do in the future. I don't know. But right now, that's where the people hang out digitally. I like the concept. I consume a lot of podcasts. I just like it. I like finding new ones and interesting ones. Yeah. And I just came from the concept of, the Bulletproof Entrepreneur literally started, and again, it's another COVID dividend. You just got more time, and I'm consuming podcasts then. And I still do. I sit in coffee shops, meeting rooms, you name it, with business owners. Yeah. And everyone is a financial planner on this call would relate to this. We have really interesting conversations. And go back to my earlier point. If you ask meaningful questions about people, and they share their story, their personal journey, it's fascinating. Nobody I've ever spoken to has said as an easy ride. No one said, well, start a business and we just made millions and we sold it for tens of millions and we all get happily ever after. There are trials and tribulations. It's a classic hero's journey. Yeah, set off with an honorable mission or a vision, what we're trying to achieve. They were thwarted. There was battles to fight, and hopefully they succeeded and came on the other side of it. And I would sit in rooms, and people would share their entrepreneur journey with me. And often I would say, God, the value you've just shared with me is just incredible. If we just set a microphone up and had the conversation, we shared it with other people, there would be value to be created from other people. 100%. I honestly started the podcast not as a sort of business generating tool. I thought maybe at some point we might get a few people who might listen to it and think that's quite interesting. I honestly did it because I wanted to do it. I wanted to test myself. Could I do this? But I honestly thought the kind of the world of the business owner, and particularly the entrepreneur, and that person who's decided to go and set, it's not an easy route. It is easier to be an employee of a large corporate and get paid your salary and go home on a Friday night and not think about work.
Yep.
So the trials and tribulations of the business owner are something I wanted to document, and I want to share. So if I'm speaking to people who have kind of successfully, concluded at least one part of that journey, and they've sold up and they've sort of banked life-changing sums of money, there are people behind them on the journey, and they would love to learn from them. And the more, I've had a few quite high-profile people on the podcast, but interestingly, the more popular numbers of downloads are people who are our clients, the kind of regular people, regular business owners that others can relate to. So that's what and again, everything was an experiment. I said, let's do a handful of episodes, see what happens. And the other thing that I would just share with anyone that's showing up, again, this is obvious, but it's not easy, is consistency.
Yeah.
When I read it, I had a statistic the other day that if you release 21 episodes of a podcast, you are now in the top 1% of all podcasts ever created. Most podcasts never get past 3 or 4. Yeah. It sounds like a good idea, and then people realize, it's a bit of a faff. Nothing much is happening. I'm not getting inundated with new business. So I said from the beginning, and I'm still on the track, I'm going to do 100 episodes and then see what happens from there. So everything should be a small experiment. And podcasting now is very simple. I think we've got at least one member of my esteemed trap cohort on the call with us right now. So that's a different book. That was another idea that started a little bit after my own one, which again started from a bunch of us. There's 4 of us on the Real Advisor podcast, Trap, who are just friends, in real life. And we meet up and we go to the pub or we go for dinner and we have chats and we just get the same sort of thing. We were on a little trip over to Ireland a year ago and we just sat around in a restaurant, just chewing the fat. But we always talk about business. And we said, we should just, if we again put a microphone on this table, and I think that podcast, the Real Advisor podcast, comes across. People tell us that it's like a bunch of guys meeting in a bar, just talking about our business. Some of the best podcasts I feel are fly on the wall because you get an opportunity to have a ringside seat into a bunch of people who are interesting you never otherwise would get to hear. And I think Tim Ferriss's is like that. Joe Rogan's is built on that. Now, Alan, I'm keen to keep going. If you are, I don't know whether you've got anything coming up. I'm fine.
But I also know there's people, they might be getting ready to have dinner with their family or maybe get ready for work. So I just wanted to, before they go, if someone likes the Cuddy Jib and wants to find out more or wants to, what's a good next step they can do? What's something you'd like to put out there? Well, if someone hasn't listened to, again, I think the audience is mainly people in our financial professionals of one description or another. Do check out the Real Advisor podcast, Trap, on all podcast platforms of your choice and on YouTube. I said from the day one it had to be video, and the thing about Trap is we do no editing for it, so it is a bit raw. It's a bit basic, but I do believe it's been very successful. It's been much more successful than we thought it was going to be initially. Yep. So check that out. Check out the Real Advisor podcast. We've done 20-something episodes now, and I believe within each one there's just some. I think it works because there's 4 of us and we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on some things, and so you do get some you do get some sort of conflicting views on things, which is the idea. If we all agreed on everything, it'd be really boring. So check that out. And my other podcast is the Bulletproof Entrepreneur. Anyone who's running a business would learn loads from me just interviewing successful business owners over the years. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter if anyone wants to sort of engage directly with me. Happy to do that. Absolutely. I also wanted to quickly, David, you asked if there's a pre-recording. This will go out as a podcast episode on the Finnovator, which is my podcast. But you can, and it'll also go on YouTube. But we'll also put it on, if you go to our website, which is audere, audere.com.au, you can sign up for our free best practice management portal, and we put a copy of that, as with all of our masterclasses, on there if you wanted to grab it. So just in case you have to leave it early and you want to know to pick up on the rest of the conversation. So I'm really interested. We can talk about podcasting a bit more, but what are you doing next? I mean, there's so much you've done. You're in a position now where you've got a business where it gives you the freedom. You've got that kind of what's that About a Boy thing with Hugh Grant, where he's got an empty sort of diary. What do you do? Where do you see the next leap forward for you and for the business? It's more of the same, but better, I think. So all roads lead back to the filter through which I see everything is the concept, is our vision.
And it just keeps coming back to this: how can we help more people? That's our main thing. So we'll continue to grow this business. We'll continue to help more families. We'll continue to show up and do the basics. And I've got a strong feeling that we've got this even more sort of new legislation that's come out in the UK in the last week or so, called Consumer Duty. And I just the sense I've got is that the world is moving more and more towards boutique businesses, is what I'm calling this, the smaller owner-managed type company, and away from the large corporate. Yep. It comes back to this idea of we are in the relationship business, we are in the human being business versus the investment management business.
Yeah,
investment management is, the whole industry in the UK alone is a £7 trillion business, which is the retail investment management business across pension funds and everything else. And the money's to be made in fund management historically. And I think slowly but surely the world is waking up to the fact that there's much more to it than that. And whether you choose Fund A or Fund B, it's not really going to make a huge difference in your life. What's important is identifying what a life well lived looks like, and working with a sort of trusted advisor to help you achieve all the things that's important to you and your family. So the world that I operate in, and the people that I sort of hang out with and know, we've been saying this for years, but we've been sort of barking at the moon effectively, because the world hasn't really understood this, because we're up against the weight of this global asset management industry that tells the world that what you should be interested in is investing in Fund A because it's better than Fund B. But slowly but surely, I just got, some of the new people that knock on our door and want to become clients have been historically clients of these large corporates, and they've seen the light. So I'm very positive about the future direction of businesses like mine and like others, the many who are on this call. And I can't sort of finish a conversation about anything about the future without talking about those two magic letters, A and I, because the stuff, and I've got, again, reflecting what I mentioned before, my shiny new object, magpie mentality. This was a wonderful new object for me to get into. When I first started understanding, I've gone deep in the weeds on AI. And if there is a sector ripe for disruption through what AI can achieve, more than any others, I believe it's financial services.
Okay.
Because we are right at the, if you think about what we actually do, we're very much in the numbers game. We're doing, I cringe a little bit, look at some of the stuff that we do, manual labor with Excel spreadsheets and manipulating money, data and moving figures around. And it's kind of a laborious process, but it's a part of the work that we do. And then we sort of convert all that kind of data aspects and we put it into the written word, and we create, long, relatively boring documents for people to consume and read. And that's just a transfer of data, transfer of information from us to our clients and prospective clients. And AI does all that. AI just excels at, pardon the pun, but excels at numbers and manipulating data and organizing data and organizing words and the written word and visuals and video. And so the opportunities that exist for financial planners to embrace and optimize their businesses for the future, to really enhance and I think we have the opportunity. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I still say for a huge industry, the technology that exists in financial services is pretty poor, relatively. We're still sort of scratching around, and systems that don't really talk to each other, rekeying data, etc. The opportunities, and I've spent quite a lot of time in this in the last, since the beginning of this year. So it's only sort of 6 or 7 months, but quite a lot of time understanding the opportunities that exist and testing out some of the new tech that's now available to us. And I'm really excited about it. So I think we can continue to scale our business, to grow a business, to attract and develop our new clients. But we can just do it far more efficiently and effectively. And what that does is it just makes life better for everyone. Yeah. I've got in my colleagues here, my team, really good people, talented people that are just doing work which is pretty mind-numbing because it has to be done. It's manual labor effectively, but so sit in a darkened room and just crunch some numbers. Yeah. But if we can get the machines to do all that, faster, lower cost, more effectively than humans, and we can be focused on the unique part of our role, which is uniquely human. Happy days for my colleagues, happy days for our clients.
I agree.
Really, really good. I think what the advisors and often the big, large corporates who focus a lot on the numbers and the data and fund performance and charts and graphs and their view of the markets, what the market's going to do, no one cares about that. And the machines will do it faster and better than anyone else. And not everyone is good at doing this. Not everyone is great at building relationships with clients and building rapport and asking great questions and caring about the answers. So I think firms like ours, and there's plenty others like us, who really focus on the human side of things will excel in the next number of years. We'll do super, super well because we're already pretty good at it. We'll get better at it. We'll have more time to do that. If we can create more time to have higher quality conversations with our clients and future clients, it's more enjoyable for every single part of our experience from our team to our clients, to our community and everyone around us.
Mate, I love that.
Create more time to create more podcasts. Who knows?
Well, it's funny. I often talk about the fact that we're at a really interesting place in the advice space, and whether you come at it from a global thing, and I look at fitness, and you go back 40 years ago, fitness was just rich people, right? And suddenly it went through this evolution to now fitness is available. It's something that everybody invests in, and they do it. And ultimately, what it is basically going and sweating and hurting and being in pain, but everybody's realized that this is part of creating a better life. And I think people are coming to this realization now that getting advice about your money, can be the number one thing that creates misery, or it can create freedom, and working with people and treating it the same way you do your fitness and well-being. That's where we're heading. I can't, I think once we get the tech right and we get the efficiency, I think we're on the cusp of a golden age. I really do. I agree with everything you've put out there today. Alan, this has been absolutely amazing. And I've got my full page of notes, but I think the one thing, probably two things I really take from this is, I feel like so much of your success and what you've done is ultimately about seeking to build relationships and connection. And the second thing is, right from the very moment I met you, you are just curious, and you want to learn, you want to know, and you want to share, and you want to put it out there. And I think, there's two things to take away from that. I think those are the two things I would take away personally. Yeah,
absolutely. I hope it's been of some help.
It has got everybody. Can you do me a quick favor? Just head over to the chat box because I have an above average need for feedback. Can you just tell me what's one thing that you've taken from this discussion today that you think has been most useful or most valuable, or you can implement? I'd love to know. Nick says it was all awful. No, he doesn't. He didn't say that. Just pop in the chat box. So one thing, so we can just sort of reflect on it. Nick says it's not just us that have trouble stopping him in full flow. It's a good flow. Dara, am I pronouncing that right? Dara.
Dara, yeah. I know cool. Dara. Great guy from Ireland. Yeah.
Consistency is key with everything. Mike, best use of your time. Work out the best. Yeah. I mean, if you get to that certain point, that's a given. What else we got? Keep it coming through. Just turn up, says Nick. Yep, got to be there. Marcus says discipline equals freedom. Oh, Jocko Willink. Yeah. Discipline is Jocko. I love Jocko. I love the way he looks and the way he talks and what comes out of his mouth. He's fantastic.
But look at him. Another example of just a content creator. He's an ex Navy SEALs or something guy, but there's thousands of them. But he just shows up and he delivers and he shares his information. And who do you think would be interested in what he's? But one of the most successful podcasts in the world now.
Dave Goggins. There's another one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Meaningful conversations. Greg says the three things: simplicity, the share your workbook, and Twitter is the testing ground. Yeah. Elizabeth, welcome. Give yourself time to think about how to do stuff. Andrew's be consistent with online marketing. Consistency is everything. Stuart's consistently, not perfection. 100%. That's a good one. Nick, the 21 episodes thing, being in the top 1% is insane. I agree. That is insane. But that's the whole thing about being reaching the top at something is actually much, much easier than people realize compared to just doing it. Consideration of stepping back from the advisor role. Jonathan's be authentic and personable. Marcus showing, I love it. Guys, thank you so much, guys and girls. Apologies. Final thoughts, Alan.
Al. That works. I mean, the only sort of final thoughts that I've is without this is not sort of fake humility. This is a kind of if I can, God, not as if there are people a million times more successful than I am or we are, but we've done okay. We've done okay from modest, humble origins and all the rest of it. But the big thing is just don't overthink this. I've learned all the ways of not doing things. I wrote an article last year, failing my way to success, because my God, have I done some crazy stuff and gone up some dead ends and wasted a lot of time. So I think my thoughts are: do give yourself time to think about this. What is your vision? What is an idea? We deliver financial planning and, good outcomes for our clients. What is it for you? What does a good life look like for you? Is it you're on the tools dealing with your clients every day? If so, wonderful. But if you want to continue to grow, you might have to bring other people in. You don't even have nowadays. You don't even have to hire them on the payroll as such. You can outsource a lot of the other activities, but you've got to be intentional. So I think that's one key thing is be intentional. Be really super clear about what you want to do and what describe your ideal life 3 years out, for example, 5 years out, for example. I wouldn't go any further than that, because God knows what will happen. And then, as has been mentioned by a lot of the people on this call, consistency. What is it you're going to do every day in order to give yourself the highest possible opportunity of achieving that ideal outcome? And last but not least, simplify. Don't over-engineer it. Don't try to be on every single platform. You choose one or two platforms if you're going to create content and show up every day and deliver it. So those are the things I would say. You do that with any level of consistency, you've got the highest possible chance of achieving your, what good looks like for you. You
know what? If it wasn't stapled to my ear, I would do a mic drop right now, because that was excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, Alan. It's always a pleasure. And hopefully I get to sort of meet you in the flesh in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're over in the UK. So
first time in 14 years.
Wow. Okay.
I know. Well, I'm half thinking they're going to take my passport off when I arrive, just as penance. But thanks again, everybody. And a reminder, head over, if you haven't heard it before, head over and check out the Real Advice podcast and the Bulletproof Entrepreneur. Other than that, Alan, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it. I hope you got as much out of that podcast as I did, because it was just awesome. Remember, if you'd like to hear more from Alan and from all the guys at the Truck Podcast, do head over and become a subscriber on whether you're an Apple Podcast person or Spotify. And of course, if you're enjoying the Finnovator, please feel free to share the love. And particularly if you like it, please, we'd love it if you just leave a little review and let other people know what to expect. That's it from me. I will see you in a couple of weeks with the next episode. Bye.